Welcome back to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. I'm Kathryn Peterson here with my co-host, Michael Regan. And today we have a guest that we're very, very excited about bringing to you. She's going to provide a ton of value. We're excited just to chat with her a little bit about herself and how she got to where she is and her vision for the market and the future in our industry. So first I'm going to welcome Michael Regan, and then we'll welcome our guest after that.
Well, it's always good to be with you, Kathryn. And again, a beautiful, beautiful day, and always fun to be with two pros that I enjoy. And you and Christy are two of the best. So let's bring our friend Christy Walker into the frame. Christy, you are probably at this point a couple of decades strong, running a brokerage in the great state of Arizona, where I call home. Yes, that's correct, Oregon. Arizona is my home. And I've had the pleasure of working alongside of you and spending some time with you and your family personally. And I'm just thrilled that you would join us on today's podcast. So welcome into the frame, Christy Walker.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. Was thrilled to get the text to invite me to be on this show, and can't wait to hear what comes of it. It's going to be fantastic today.
All right. So, Kathryn, your only job is to keep this train on the tracks, my friend, and away we go.
And just to give everyone a little bit of color and background. So you run Remax Signature, and you've been in the real estate industry since 2002. So even though that sounds like it was just yesterday because it's in the 2000s, we all know that that's actually a long time.
Yeah.
And you've also, before that, were with investments and property management. So you probably have a really wide view. And that's one thing I'm excited to hear from you about. The other thing that I love is education, collaboration, integrity. Plus, you teach classes and host mastermind events. So I'm sure you get to see a lot of different people's perspectives too. So that's one of the things that we kind of want to talk a little bit about in that manager and agent role. You do both at the same time, which not everybody can do. So how do you manage both of those things at the same time?
Oh, goodness. That has been a skill that has been developed over a lot of years, and I will give a big shout out to my coach at Building Champions for helping with that, because many years ago, like many people, I was probably overextended and saying yes to too many things and not able to prioritize, and going through a series of exercises, learning how to set up my calendar, how to time block for the things that are top priorities for me, really enabled me to do well in both roles, but not get to that place where I'm just exhausted or dropping the ball on things.
Well, I'm gonna add a little bit to that, given that I may have had a passenger seat to that particular vehicle. You know, it's more than just your ability to figure out how to find harmony between those two. You've thrived in both roles. I mean, there have been times where, and I know you're not going to toot your own horn, but don't mind. Let us do it. There have been times where you've been acknowledged both as a top agent, but also as someone who's been able to expand her brokerage into other markets around the state of Arizona, either of which would be an incredible accomplishment. But to Kathryn's point, you were finding a way to do these things sometimes in the very same season. So I don't want our audience to think, oh, she just kind of figured out how to cobble her way through a half-baked version of both of these. You're thriving in both seats by most measurable standards. So to you, does it feel like oh my gosh, the pressure's on, I've got to keep doing it? Or have you found a way to set your own bar, set your own pace? What does that feel like as the person who's in the middle of all of that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really do believe that I'm called to both, and so that helps. I have a set of gifts or talents that lend themselves to being an entrepreneur and running small businesses, and I really enjoy the challenges and the pressures that come with that. But I also love serving people and being able to be an agent who puts on that hat and wears that role well and walks someone through a life-changing experience where they're maybe moving in or out of state, or they're experiencing turmoil. We work with a lot of estates or divorce situations. And so getting to walk with people through those times and be there, or celebrating a first home for a new couple that just had a baby, it's just exciting. And it's a fun part of breaking up my day and not having it look too much like any one thing. So there's just a lot of variety to what I get to do because I get to wear both hats, and I love that.
Are there days where you say, I wish I could just stay in this lane all the time, or I wish I could stay out of that lane? Or is that just part of the emotional ride that we all go through? Like, do you ever have those experiences where I'm just loving this? I wish this was all I had to do all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And on any given day, it could be either one of those hats. Some days I just want to run the business and not deal with people who are stressing out about details on their move. And other days I'm like, okay, the business stuff is just overwhelming and there's HR problems or there's operations challenges or there's conflicts with,
Mm.
people in the workplace. And I'm like, just let me go sell a house. So there's all of that and more. And you're spot on that, I guess that's part of what, when you go into it, that you've got to commit to seeing those things through. And it's, every day is not a picnic, but because I have that variety, it's nice that I can bounce back and forth, and I don't find myself too often in a rut where I'm in that one role and I just have to keep pressing through without the joy of maybe the other role playing a part of that. So it's good.
Yeah, that is. It's always good to not get bored.
Mhm.
So, as a business owner, really now you've been doing this for a long time, 2 decades. So what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned over that time?
Oh, wow. A lot of lessons. I'll start with managing my priorities has been a big thing that I've had to learn because I think, especially initially, I was a people pleaser and saying yes to everyone was not getting me to the place where I needed to go. And so recognizing that if I had a vision for where I wanted our company to go or my agents to thrive, that I needed to be able to say no in a healthy way to certain things that were pulling me away from really what I needed to be focused on. I've also really had to learn how to delegate. That was hard because I am a little bit of a control freak, to be honest, and I like to know that everything's being done and being done well. And so finding myself in places where as we scaled and grow, we've grown to certain levels. More and more so, I've had to learn to raise up other people around me and delegate the things that are most important to them and recognize that there are many other people that are more skilled in other areas. And that's been another fun thing to, I'll say, expand and learn from because there was probably a time where pridefully I thought I was the best one to do everything. And now I'm very, very comfortable in trusting my staff to take care of things and to know that they're going to do it probably better than I can because they've got the time and attention or the talent to do it.
Listen, I've never been accused of being like a math magician here, but if I think I heard the setup correctly, you've had 23 years of leading this company to learn those lessons. And a lot of our audience might be thinking, yeah, boy, do I know something about being stuck as the people pleaser. And boy, do I understand being that perfectionist who wants to control everything because, by the way, that's the way you please people is you make sure nobody else drops the ball that has your name on it. So they're
Yeah.
relating to what you're saying, but you just skimmed 23 years there really quickly. Were there moments in those decades where you said, okay, this is the time I've got to learn that lesson and do it differently? Like, what were some of those moments, or what was the pivot point? Maybe it was a big moment, maybe there were several small ones, but help our audience see maybe the path that they could follow if they followed your lead.
Sure. So real estate's a little bit of a different arena for some entrepreneurs who may not understand. We work with independent contractors, and so that's a very different thing. I liken it to having volunteers, and you are constantly encouraging, corralling, appreciating all of those volunteers who show up because they have a choice about whether they want to work for you or whether they want to go next door and hang their license with another brokerage. And so a lot of those lessons have come through the years through some hard things, having an agent leave with no notice and not even knowing why, and trying to figure out what did I do right? What did I do wrong? How could I have prevented this? Lots of ups and downs. I think for me, especially in the last 2 years, as we've expanded from one location to multiple locations, that has also been a big trigger to really having to lean in and learn a lot of lessons and a lot about myself that I didn't realize I needed to learn until I hit those challenges, those growth challenges. I thought at first, okay, no big deal. I can have these multiple locations, and like so many who learned through the COVID years, I'll just manage remotely, or I'll be hands-on with people as much as I can and work out of different locations. And I quickly found myself again getting to that burnout phase where I was trying to get to every place and see everyone and call everyone all the time, and not actually doing the real work because I just didn't, I wanted to hold it together like I was the glue or something. And so it's been a couple of years of trying to find a good balance between being present and being available and making sure they know that I care, but also still keeping on that CEO and COO hat of having a vision for where we're going and learning how to run the operations and not let things fall off because I'm too busy, trying to sustain this branch over here or recruit to this branch over there, or answer this agent question over here. And that's been a real thing that has just come about in the last couple of years that I'm learning to juggle better and better over time. I don't know that I have the answer for it yet, but
A
it
work in
stretched
progress.
me. Yeah, I'm being stretched in a lot of great ways. Financially, it was a huge stretch. I mean, it was a strategic risk, and we're not in the best economy, but I firmly believe that we positioned ourselves in marketplaces that needed our services and that we can make an impact. And so, knowing that and believing it is one thing, walking it out and really having to put, my agents first and teach them how to go out and sell despite the challenges externally that are happening has also been one of those big challenges that we're working our way through.
And for our audience that might not be aware of this, I mean, Kathryn, you live in the great state of Colorado and are certainly located in a spot that is not exactly convenient to say Denver or Fort Collins or Colorado Springs along the Front Range. You've got to prepare and plan. Christy, my guess is, I don't know how far Green Valley is from North Phoenix, but probably 3 hours, I would guess.
Yeah.
So there's probably a lot of strategic planning that goes into the way you choose to be physically present when the market requires that, the relationship with your agents benefits from that versus the times that you're choosing to use technology and Zoom, whether that's, video or maybe even, the beauty of an iPad or an iPhone. How have you found communicating works best for your style with all of these, as you call them, independent contractors who may or may not need to meet with you because they may have other things they want to do? How have you managed that? That seems like a real challenge.
Yeah, and it's funny the way you phrased that question because you said, "How would you like to?" And if it were all up to me, it would look very different. But the reality is, I have a whole bunch of different people with different personality styles that need something different from me. And there is no one way that fits all. And so, again, I'm learning to figure out how to budget time to communicate in a variety of different ways. And that has been something that's been new because before we could call everybody into the office with one location and just have regular get togethers, meetings, classes. And now that's not the reality. So it takes a lot more intentionality to do it. And so I do video emails. I love doing video emails because I think they get to feel and see my face, my tone, my smile, my whatever. And so it communicates in a much different way. But we also have a group app that we use for question and answers, and technology has facilitated a lot of great conversations. So they know if they can't reach me right away, they can also get a hold of each other. That's been another development that we've done to enable better communication and support to the agents. And then yeah, I went from probably going down there every week to backing off to about once a month, where I'm hitting those offices that are 2-hour drives, 3-hour drives. Because for me, I still want to be present, but they don't need me there on a daily or weekly basis by any means. They've got a great manager that's there for daily support. And most of the time, they're not in the office. They're out in the field doing their work. And so we've found that it's strategic to plan a day, let them know when I'm coming into town, and that way they can clear a block of their schedule and come do lunch or meet up for coffee, or just come in the office and schedule a 15-minute back to back so that I can see everybody and coach them along or listen to what they need. So that's been some of the things that we're working on, is trying to find those methodologies that really hit home for them. And I'm still, because of training I've been through with real estate, still doing the traditional, sending gifts occasionally, writing personal notes, picking up the phone and calling them every month just to check in. They all, again, they want to be loved on in different ways.
That's great. I'm glad that you adjust your style. That's probably what makes you an amazing manager and business owner. So good job with that. Hey, so we're in a little bit of a different current reality than we have been before between NAR and the housing market and just all the craziness of 2025. So with that, first, what do you kind of see? And second, what agents do you think will really thrive in this market and what types of agents do you think will really thrive in this market that we have right now?
Yeah, we're coming off of a challenging year, as most people would look at the statistics and know that we had the lowest sales we've had in years. We've had a high interest rate. That's subjective, but what most people would consider a high interest rate, I consider these rates fairly normal. But those are challenges. And then we also came off of an election year and an inflationary high year, and that also added some concerns. And so buyers were less willing to take a leap of faith and get into the market, and sellers saw homes sitting on the market longer, and that was challenging. And we're going to see a little relief this year, but it's not going to swing right back into a market that we had 3 or 4 years ago. And so agents have to be positioned to build their business on systems that are going to work, and to really go back to understanding that there's not going to be any easy sales anymore. They have got to put in the hard work, and they may not even get paid as much, but they've really got to be willing to commit to the process and love what they do. Um, the agents that I think are going to thrive in this market are not only the ones that are hardworking and the ones that are willing to go the extra mile. I think they're the ones that are going to follow systems and actually have a process for how to keep in touch with past clients, how to market themselves consistently so that they generate enough new business to keep a pipeline going. And those that just mentally and emotionally are going to keep their head in the game and really stay focused. I find way too many agents get distracted or off track. And in a year that is maybe a slower sales season, you can't do that. You've got to stay really focused and intentional about running a business and not just doing sales.
Okay, I like the direction of this conversation because I'm guessing if the audience out there that is listening to our podcast relates to this, they either are agents who maybe need to hear some of that direct talk, and it's nice to hear it from someone who isn't maybe their broker or their boss, someone who can speak just with a more general approach, but still hit them where they are. The other part of our audience, of course, like Kathryn, they work on the lending side of the business, and often these are strategic partnerships. And I think it's really important if you're a lender out there today listening to hear loud and clear, what these agents are going through to make the shift in order to be successful. Because if we don't find new and creative ways to support that partnership, guess what? That's going to be a disconnect because, as Christy just said, they may have to work harder for less than they are used to working for. And Christy, I want to go back to a comment you made about your story and maybe tie it now to these agents. You said a long time ago, I felt really called to be in a position like that. That speaks in coaching language to me of you know your why. The why behind it is probably critical to your ability to push through a dark day, much less a dark season. Some of these agents, how do they how do they get in touch with that deeper reality? Maybe in the past their why was not too complicated. I want a flexible job that pays well. That might have been good enough for a while, but today it's got to be deeper, and if it's not, it's really hard. How do you coach someone through finding the purpose, the why behind all of this what that they're going to be required to do? How do you coach them through that?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And there's a lot of different, I'll say, methodologies to do that. It was funny you say that because I just finished listening to Start With Why again not too long ago on one of my road trips down to my Southern Arizona office. And just a lot of concepts out of that book by Simon Sinek really hit home again, and drove that reality that, yeah, if you're not clear on your why, it is very easy to get upset by what's going on, and it's very easy to get discouraged or disappointed. And the moment you start losing hope that you can have an impact or create something meaningful with your life, you're done, right? You're sliding down that slippery slope. So for agents who want to get back to that, there are some really great critical questions that you can ask yourself. But I also think you can start to ask people around you for intel. Maybe if you're unclear about what your why is, maybe you start asking some of your teammates or your colleagues in your office, why do you do this? What got you into it? And what keeps you going when everything feels like it's hard? I know for me at times when I couldn't define my own, maybe hearing someone else's convictions helped me to get back on track and to
Mhm.
look at what can I, drum up? How can I pivot or take that idea and springboard from it and recognize I can tie it to myself? It's a lot easier, I think, for me with my faith to know what my why is, but it's also easier maybe because I've got a very strong family tie. And so I have a lot of why around being a wife and a mom that for me, I want to lead by example. I want my daughters to look up to me. I want my community to be enhanced because they're growing up in this community where they're going to someday plug in and hopefully live and work and enjoy it. And so those things all come uh, to bear when I'm out working and even on a hard day, recognizing that it has, a lasting impact, everything that I do. And that makes it, worthwhile to dig in deep even on those days where it's really hard.
Yeah, you're doing a great job of helping our audience see that the purpose behind what you do, the why, as we call it, is so critical because there are days where what you do is hard enough. And
Mhm.
if you don't know why you're doing it, it is easy to say, "Let me up. I've had enough. This is no fun anymore. They're not paying me enough. They're not treating me well enough." Whatever your
Yeah.
excuse or blame is. But in that moment, it's understandable because we're all human beings. And at some point, if you have enough hard days in a row, you do start to look in the mirror and think, why am I doing this? So you're going to ask yourself that question. Might be a really good idea while your emotional intelligence is a little more equilibrium balance to
Yeah.
figure that out when you're calm. Because if you're trying to figure that out when your amygdala is hijacked, probably not a great time to stay in the game.
True. Very true. Yeah, and I think so many agents, especially newer ones in the business, they jump into how do I create a business or how do I create a lead or how do I get a sale? And they skip right over the what and the why. And they really need to reverse that order because again, if you're spot on, if you're not clear on why you're doing it, people are going to see through what you're doing and recognize that maybe it's not authentic or maybe it's not with their best interests at heart. And that's a big deal. And it is going to sabotage a lot of what you're able to create in your own business if you're not coming from a place of meaning and values for yourself.
So, with that, I think it's a natural lead into what's coming up. So, talk to us about your vision and more importantly, how you're going to have your team come along with you and buy into that vision so you all can move ahead together.
Yeah. So we are in a growth stage right now, and so I'll speak about vision for kind of our industry at large and vision for our own company. I'm in the place where, thankfully, we've had the opportunity to expand, but our vision really clearly is just to support professional agents to have a meaningful success. And so, for a lot of them, that meaningful success is me discovering their why because I need to support them in that. And not everybody finds that a GCI is meaningful, right? And maybe it is for some, but that may not be their why. And for us at this point, we want to get each office to be thriving. We'd like to get to 100 agents where they are all able to make a GCI of 1.5 times the national average because we want them to be winning and thriving and beating the market. And that's a big thing for most people in this. In this kind of environment, they want to know that they've got a successful year ahead of them and something to look forward to. And so part of it is identifying what they want to do, who they want to serve, and why they want to serve them, and being able to pave a path for them. And then with that, we're looking at real estate now as our hub. And so it becomes kind of the center spoke on a lot of different ancillary services that are going to support our agents doing better business. And so with that, we've added property management in the last couple of years. We've added a commercial division for those referrals. We've added a transaction coordinator in-house for agents to be able to delegate. We're looking at adding now marketing services. And so as we continue to expand what we can do to provide support support. We're hopeful that people who really want to do a better book of business and know they may not be gifted in every area. That's one of the struggles of being an entrepreneur, right? Is you can't always know how to be everything. You can't be a CEO and a COO and a CFO and a CIO. And like we're asked to do it all. And that's not always realistic. And so helping them understand what they can, again, take off their plate and allow us to step in and support is part of the way that we're hoping to help agents really do more business than they would elsewhere.
So you're talking a little bit about the vision of what I think you see. How
Yeah.
about help our audience? Like if as you said, 2024, one of the most measurably difficult years that we've seen, and not the worst, but definitely hard.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of the inside view for those of us who work within the housing industry. But our audience, they tend to live in these homes that we're helping to sell and buy and finance. So how would you encourage the listening audience who's out there thinking, I don't know, is it safe to go back in the water? Like, how do you encourage folks? And I do realize real estate is very localized, and so your individual neighborhood is way different than someone else's. But I'm speaking more of the mindset around investing in real estate. How do you encourage folks that maybe are just scared and they've listened to too many negative messages that have told them it's not safe? How do you help them? Because you and I have, all three of us, we have kids that need to buy homes someday, and we want the future of housing to be thriving. How do you help them, Kirsty?
Absolutely. Oh, goodness. No pressure. How do I help everybody? No, you're spot on. Like I'm looking at my kids growing up, and I believe in the value of homeownership. I believe in the American dream. And I think most people still do somewhere inside when they think about what does it look like to be a successful American. There's something there that says, I want to contribute to my community. I want to be plugged in and have community. I want to own a home and have a successful career. And so those are things that maybe are fundamentally a part of our culture and what we identify as being successful. And so, yeah, there may be fears that come alongside, especially when there's a lot of external factors that create doubt. But to me, that's a mental game, and it's a hard one to fix on the spot. For a lot of the clients we work with, we have to dive deep. We have to start asking them questions about what do they really want and where do they see themselves in 5 or 10 years. Help them think forward and look at what does it mean to have a decision today that maybe will impact their generations for the next, 20, 30, 40 years, because sometimes they're not thinking that way. They're thinking about right now. And they don't realize that that delayed decision may end up costing them. And I'll give you an example. I've got first time homebuyers that several of them I know that have in the last 4 years put off a buying decision. And they were, whether it was because of what they were hearing on the radio or on the news, they were thinking interest rates are going to come down, the housing bubble is going to crash, and we're going to be able to buy less, right? All these things that they hoped on or they heard. Some things created fear, and so they decided to wait, thinking I'll play the game. And the problem with that is that by delaying that decision by 3 or 4 years, they've now had several years of appreciation that they haven't been able to keep up with in saving for their down payment. And now they're further behind than they were when they got started. And so I think the best thing I can advise for people who are listening to this that maybe are in a consumer mindset is to lean into your professionals and trust your financial team. That has to be a cornerstone to your buying decision. And you cannot let the news or the media or some person on the radio who's speculating be the one that makes a decision for you and your family, because you and your family are the ones that are going to have to live with either the reward or the consequences of these decisions long term. And for me, yes, there's always a risk in housing that it could go up and it could go down. We've seen that. But over the long haul, housing has always been one of the most solid investments, and it needs to be a consideration that this is a long game. We're not day trading, right? This is real estate. So you buy now and you hold, and that's the goal for most people is you hold. And most Americans are in their home for 8 years. I think that timeline is shortening quite a bit. We're going to start to see that change as we have some different factors come into play. But we've been tied up for a while. And so that number has been stretched because we've got some people that are just locked in with interest rates that won't make a move. And that's an interesting thing that's pushed that number up artificially longer. And now we're going to start to see some movement with that.
Yeah, these are things that I think the three of us could probably spend hours banging around on, because it's a topic that I think we all, I mean, on a daily basis, someone is asking about, the safety or the security of real estate investing. And my encouragement to our audience, if they're listening, so whether you're a homeowner or you're helping people who are getting into home ownership, you may be a small business operator who also has an investment property. You may be someone who's trying to help their children get into, the housing market for the first time. Wherever you are, that you're out there listening, I think the part that I heard Christy say that it's really wise is play a long game here. Look at this through a wide lens. Dude, I love the phrase, we're not day trading here. And I think there have been seasons where people have made the mistake of treating real estate like a short-term flip investment. And I guess there's been somebody out there who's made a short-term gain doing that, but the risks involved with that are significant. And let's be honest, they don't really help our overall housing market as a whole when that's the mindset that we go into the market with. So whether you're going to live in this home or you're going to invest in it so someone else can live in this home, play the long game. And I really think that's a great message from you, Christy, because you're right. The data won't lie. I mean, men lie, women lie. The data doesn't lie. If you're willing to go back and look at the data, housing has been an amazing place to invest your money. And bonus, you might get to live in your investment. Try that with your 401k. Not as easy.
Well, and it's leveraged. I think that's the thing that some people forget. I come from that investment background, so Kathryn brought that up at the beginning. And it's one of the most powerful things because, you can invest in your future, whether it's, stocks or gold or whatever it is, but whatever you want to buy, you have to buy with 100% of that money, right? You want $100 in gold, you have to spend $100. You get into real estate and you're putting a small percentage down to have an asset that is way bigger working for you. And that's really why it builds such wealth for most families and it becomes generational. And it's one of the things we're passionate about because we know that there's so many people that are struggling with affordability. But if we can just get them into real estate and past the fear of what ifs, then they find themselves in a much better position with their equity, with their tax relief, with everything down the road. And it's a beautiful thing when for me, when I can look back and say, hey, you've been in your home 5 years and guess what you've built now, what a gift that is.
What I love about talking to you is I can see your passion for the industry and I can see your leadership shine through and how much you love your people and your clients. So I'm really, really happy that we had you on the podcast today. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit and hear about your journey and your business and your passion. So thank you so much, Christy Walker, for sharing that with us today. And Michael, any closing thoughts, closing questions?
Well, I can't have time on video with Christy somewhere here in the middle of February when we're recording. I do believe pitchers and catchers have reported. So let's quickly get your hot take, Christy. What's on deck this year for Major League
Oh,
Baseball? Are you a
oh,
big fan of the Dodger behemoth, or are there some other hopes and dreams out
well,
there alive in 25?
you're going to get me in trouble with some audience members if we start talking about LA here. As a recap, I am from Arizona and we have a very strong rivalry, but Salt River Fields just opened and players are there and it's spring training time is around the corner. So baseball season is something that I love and I'm excited about. And I am excited to see us go head to head with the Dodgers this year. I'm not going to lie. It's been a
I
couple
like your
of years
style.
back and forth, and I think this is our year again. So I'm gonna go root for my D-backs all season long. And we made a couple of good acquisitions off season, so we've got some good prospects. Come on.
I like your style. You're doing well. Kathryn, a few years ago, Christy may or may not have handed out what you thought was a business card, but I think looked like a baseball card. So she's not messing around when she says this. Although, Christy, you could deny this now, but I think 20 years ago when I met you, you claimed to have grown up in Missouri and have a Cardinal affiliation. So I thought maybe there was a little more Cardinal love here, but heck, my second favorite team are the Diamondbacks, so we can agree on that.
I appreciate the Cardinals are struggling a little, let's be honest. So,
So folks, that's going to put a wrap on today's podcast. In all seriousness, so great to have you. I completely agree with Kathryn. It is awesome to see the radiance of the energy you bring as a professional shine through just on our recording. And I hope for those of you listening at home, you're getting that same sense of that energy from Christy that, hey, rumors of the demise of housing have been greatly exaggerated. We are ready to help another generation of homeowners, and we're going to do it the right way. This is why you've been an educator and a trainer for so many years, and this is why you'll continue to thrive as a business owner into the future. Thanks for spending some time with us today, Christy. We really appreciate it.
You guys have been wonderful, and I so appreciate the opportunity to come on and spend a little time with you and talk about real estate.
Folks, that's a wrap today on Building Bigger Lives. We appreciate you joining us. As always, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon, on Spotify. We're basically on every podcast platform that you want to find. We also have a video version on YouTube, so you can find us there if you want to see our smiling faces in addition to the content we bring you each Wednesday. And we look forward to seeing you or hearing you on an episode soon.